Good morning, everyone. I'm gonna wait for a while and see if there's anyone online. Huh? I found my first sketch. So, I'm in quarantine in Malaysia, and this is day 4, I think. Yeah, day 4. Um, and I have another 10 more days to complete the quarantine, and I'm in KLIA 2 at the Tunes Hotel. At the beginning, we had some hiccups, but now everything is clear and flowing well, all big. What begins well ends well too. Yes. Good morning, Martasya. Good morning, Manita. It's a small room, but a very clean, very a nice room. In fact, yeah. Um, yes. Good morning, my dear sister. All right, I think I should begin. Now, I've just got so many creative ideas. I was thinking, what would I do? I had my morning meditation, sensory awareness practice. I had my asana practice, my pranayama practice. I was reading a lot, listening to lectures. Good morning, Rosnita. Good morning, Mimi. Pumpun. Good morning, Mon. Good morning to everyone. So I was just thinking, I've got so many ideas, and then I was thinking of bringing in the practice of pranayama. But I'm going to present the practice of pranayama not in a way of, in a technique oriented way from Hatha Yoga Pradipika or from Gheranda Samhita, not in that way, but I'm going to bring a practice, a very light practice. Yes, Sharon, all the ordeals and the difficulties are over, and I'm feeling better, and the food is fine. I learned to accept whatever that's going to come and happen. So taking one day at a time. So therefore, I'm going to push away the comments. Otherwise, I think I am getting distracted with the comments. So I'm going to present the subject of pranayama not in a way of the techniques of pranayama, but pranayama as in simple breath awareness. Although I'm using the word simple, it could get complex at times. It just depends where we are at the time of practice and how we are with our body. So it's a simple breath awareness practice. It could be a practice that could be taken before the asana class, or it could be a practice that could be taken at the end. We just require 15 minutes or a little bit more or less. You could play with the length of the practice for the teachers, and for the students you could just play with the length of the practice also by sensing how your body feels. So much of my practice in the beginning year, I started with the Shivananda technique in the early 2000 when I started my yoga. There was a lot of pranayama introduced before the asana. And then when I shifted into the Iyengar yoga technique, there was a lot more of asanas, importance given to the asana practice rather than the pranayama practice. Although there was pranayama coming into it later on in my life. I was introduced to pranayama by other senior teachers, but most of them were all technique orientated, so there was always some kind of reference required from a book. There was always a reference required from a person, a personality, or someone. So I would like to keep this session something not based on a book, not based on a personality, not based on who said or what someone said, but based on what does your body say. I think the oldest tradition is your body, your mind, and your breath. That's the oldest tradition we have. And if we could listen to the wisdom of the body, or if we could pay attention to the wisdom of the breath and the mind, and sense from there. So the first half of the class I'm going to divide the class into two portions. The first half of the class is what I call as sensing the body, or sensing the weather of the body. How does the body feel this morning? And however the body feels, build a sense of acceptance towards the body. It may feel, your legs may feel in a particular way, or your gut may feel in a particular way, or your shoulders are feeling in a particular way. Can we be available to how the body feels, rather than also wanting to change the way the body feels? We tend to have this symptom of wanting to continuously, or at times wanting to change how we feel. Can we learn to accept or embrace how we feel, rather than to change our feelings? So the practice is going to begin by checking the weather of the body and build a sense of acceptance of how the body feels. And from there, if that becomes an environment or a platform from where we can start sensing the breath. And we're going to look at some anatomical view of the lungs and sense how the lungs feel. All right, I'm going to start. I'm sitting. Some of you could be lying on your back in a supine position. You could be lying on your side. You could be even standing and doing this practice. I'm going to be seated. I'm sitting on my bed, as I have a restricted place. I can't really lie on the floor and place the camera so that you can see me. I'm going to start seated. My legs are crossed, my arms are relaxed. I've placed my palms on my knees and my shoulders are draping down towards my elbows. You can keep your eyes open, you can keep your eyes closed. In the beginning, we're going to begin by sensing the body. You can start by scanning your body from the legs up towards your head, or you can even sense a scan from the head down towards your legs, or even from one side of the body to the other side of the body. Just observe how does your body call you to feel the body. So there isn't a template, a pattern, a template that we should follow only this, but just sense what does your mind say right now to you? Do you want to scan the body from the legs to the head, or from the head to the legs, or from one side to the other, or from one hand, just moving from one leg into the hips? However, giving an opportunity for the body to speak to you. As you're sensing your body, be available to different parts of your body. If you're sensing from your head, be available to the cavity of your head, the lobe of your neck, and the shoulders. Think of them as a shape which has a hollow space inside it. If you're thinking of your legs, think of your legs like a tube that has a hollow space within it. If you're thinking of your hips, think of it as a cavity that has a hollow space. And what does this hollow space, the content of this hollow space, and what does this content say to you? What does the legs and the inner parts of your legs inform you this morning? What is the information coming from your arms and the content of the arms this morning? We could have various information. Maybe they are wanting to move, maybe they are wanting to rest, and maybe you sense some relaxation. Maybe there's one part of your arm more dominant than the other. We're not trying to change anything in particular, but rather we're trying to just become aware of what is there right now, being completely available to my body. Now, as we have scanned certain parts of our body, we have an inventory of information within us. Some amount of information. We've created a file of information. Now that information, how are we dealing with that information in our mind? It could be an information coming from our legs. It could be an inventory of information coming from our lungs or shoulders or head. How am I dealing with that information? Do I want to change that information, or can I just be available to that information, objectify the information, just to observing? So as I'm sitting in a slightly chilled air-conditioned room with all of the windows are open, I can feel that my fingers are cold. So how am I dealing with that information? I'm sensing my body, the temperature of my body. All right. Now this could go on. This could prolong by feeling and sensing the body, or what I call as checking the weather or climate of the body. Try to build a sense of acceptance how you feel, rather than wanting to change, because so much of yoga that is taught to us traditionally or by have a sense of wanting to change what is already there rather than to embrace what is already there. Just this experience of how I am and who I am and how I feel. Let's not change that. Let's just accept that and see why I feel like that, and try to be with that feeling and sensation. Have a sense of acceptance of this environment given to us by the 5 elements. Now, from here, let's shift into the practice of breath awareness. We're going to start to sense the print or the blueprint of the breath at the bottom of the lungs. So the ribs, they make a dome-like shape, and at the top of their ribs it's narrow, and at the bottom of the ribs it's wider. So I'm going to show you a picture of that. That's not a picture of the ribs. Okay, so you could see that the top of the ribs is narrow. The rib cage, I avoid using the word cage. I think of the ribs as a basket. Otherwise, when we keep saying cage, we think that the lung is caged. Sometimes, yeah, we cage the entire breath, and we keep the breath hidden. We are not thought to explore the breath, so therefore we can say that it's a cage. But think of the breath as which is in a basket. So that basket can expand and can contract. So if you look at the top of the ribs, the opening at the top of the ribs is slightly narrower, and then gradually there is this widening of the ribs, and then at the bottom of the ribs there it's wider. Then you have the sternum, which is holding the rib bones or the cartilage, and then you have the ribs beautifully arranged one on top of the other. The intelligence, I call the universal intelligence, how the universe has arranged our ribs one on top of the other. Of course we have variations. Okay, now the ribs are pliable. They have this ability to move in, out, and in, and the ribs have the ability to move that way, up and down. So that's the pliability of the lungs or the ribs. So now let's take our fingers and thumb and use our fingers and thumb like stethoscopes to sense. Again, I would like to remind all of you that we're not trying to change anything. We're not making deep inhalations. We're not trying to create a technique. Maybe we're trying to create your technique. What does your fingers say about your breath? What does your breath say? So it is your personalized technique. It's not a technique that is coming out of any of the text or book. What does your breath say to you right now through this exploration? So let's take our fingers and thumb and then place it at the bottommost part of your lungs where it is most wider. We saw the picture. The top is narrow. It's like a dome, and then it spreads out and then comes down that way. So we take our fingers and we sense the bottommost part of your ribs with your 10 fingers. Now, before we directly jump or go into the breath or use the fingers to sense our breath, let us first close our eyes, because the eye is a very dominant organ. It has the ability to at times, sometimes, to distract us from the environment or to become to be aware of the environment that we are in. So let's close the eyes for a while if you feel comfortable to do so. And then before going directly into the breath, can we first use the fingers to sense the cloth, the t-shirt? Let the fingers get introduced to the t-shirt first, if you're wearing one. Allow the fingers to feel fabric. It's soft, it's hard. Maybe some of the fingers are feeling more of the fabric. Some parts of your palm is feeling more or less. Be available to that aspect of the sensation of the fingers touching the fabric. And then start perceiving that behind or underneath the fabric there's your skin. Can you perceive your skin through your fingers? And it's underneath the fabric. Maybe you're able to perceive this through the movement of the breath. And then underneath the skin you have the flesh. Can you sense that through your fingers? And underneath that flesh is the bones, the ribs. And underneath the ribs is your lungs. So we're peeling, we're coming from the outside to the inside. The skin of the palm in contact with the fabric. Underneath the fabric, your skin. Underneath the skin, the flesh. Underneath the flesh, the ribs, the bones. And underneath that, behind that, the lungs. Now, can you feel the breath from the lungs into the bones? You feel the life of the breath from the back of the ribs, which is from the lungs, into the bones. And from the ribs into the flesh. And from the flesh into the skin. From the skin into the fabric. And from the fabric into your fingers. So it is as if your lungs is gifting the gift of life in the form of air into your hands. You're using your fingers to receive this information, this rhythm, and every in-breath and every out-breath is unique. They are not the same. We're not looking to make them same. We're not looking for a uniform format. We're not producing, not like a factory line, producing the same. But understanding that this body is an organism, with every inhalation and exhalation is going to be unique and special. Sense this. From there, you can retreat by bringing the palms down onto your knees. And you may still have the residue of that sensation of the palm is still there. You could feel it on the fabric, you could feel it on your skin, on that part of your ribs. You feel as if your hands are still there. The imprint. Your hands receiving the breath. And however the breath flows, at the bottom of my lungs, can I be available to that breath? It may be a long breath, it may be a short breath, it may be an interrupted breath. They are variables. The idea here is to be available to the variables, to the variations. From there, if you would like to continue staying there, whether you're lying down or you're seated, continue this practice or this exploration. If you'd like to end it, you can start opening your eyes and just sensing the environment that you are in, around you. The dimension from, if there's a dimension that you feel from inside out and from outside in, whatever experience that you are having, just be available to that experience that you're in. My purpose to have this exploration in a natural environment without changing much of what is already there is to build a sincere courage, to have a sense of acceptance of what this body is, or who we are, or what we are at that moment, without having this struggle of wanting to change. Improvement is good, is embraced, but at times we have a tendency of beating ourselves, of wanting to constantly improve this environment. Yes, why not? But can we also have a sense of acceptance, or listen to the body, listen to the breath? What is the body saying? Maybe it is good enough at that moment. Maybe that pattern or that rhythm of the breath is good enough. Maybe that thought is good enough. Can I be with it? And many times we are with this body, but we tend to run away from it. We try to change, try to accept and embrace. Hopefully this short session has given all of us a sense of acceptance of what we are and how we are with where we are in our lives, just by sensing the breath. And then tomorrow I'll meet you all by sensing a different part of our lungs, and maybe even the technique of the idea of freeing the ribs so we can breathe freely. Let's see what the day brings. Wishing you all a beautiful day, and I'm wishing myself a happy quarantine. See you all. Om.